Hello everybody, Marcos Villegas here with Al Bernstein and another edition of Boxing Hot Topics. And today's topic, of course, Floyd Mayweather Jr. rematching Marcos Maidana here at the MGM Grand, September 13th. Al, what do you make of the rematch? I know a lot of fans called for it. Floyd said in his post-fight interview that he felt he dominated the fight, but here we are, another rematch. Yeah, well, I thought Floyd did very well in the second part of that fight, obviously. But to my mind, and I think to many others, including one of the judges that had it a draw, it was a very close fight. Certainly the most interesting fight that Floyd has been involved in many years. You maybe have to go all the way back to the Jose Luis Castillo fight many years ago when Castillo fought him to a standstill in their first fight and maybe even won the fight. You can make a strong case for it. They rematched as he's doing with Marcos Maidana. And from Floyd Mayweather's standpoint, he thinks that he controlled the last part of that fight to a great degree, which he did. I don't know that he won every round, like some people are suggesting in the last half, but he thinks he kind of figured out Maidana a little bit and will do it better in the second fight. The Maidana folks, of course, think that aggression will carry the day for Maidana. For me, looking at the fight, I didn't know if it was Maidana that forced Floyd to fight that way and look the way he did, or if it was Floyd aging. And to me, that's the real question coming into this rematch.
It really is, because from the get-go, remember, Floyd was backed against the ropes, which he often does in fights, although in recent fights he hasn't been. But the difference was Maidana was getting some things done when he was on the ropes. Some of those punches weren't landing and some were awkward. There are a lot of overhand rights that got in and body shots from Maidana. So yes, there's no question that you could look at that fight and ask the question, which was it? And that's why people want to get the answer on September 13th. And I think people are interested in this fight.
And also, we're going to get the answer, too, if Floyd can show a better performance. And if he doesn't, it'll confirm that, age is taking a toll on him. But when I think of this fight, how you mentioned Jose Luis Castillo, I think, well, the second time around with Castillo, totally different fight, was able to adapt. And I think of it, well, he's probably thinking of that coming into this fight.
Yeah, absolutely. And Castillo still fought well in the second fight, but it was a clear 3 to 4 point victory for Mayweather in that fight. And that's what I think he's looking to do against Maidana for sure. And I'm sure that is what he's thinking. But when he did that against Castillo, he wasn't in his mid to late 30s. And that's the question. Now, we never see signs of aging in Floyd Mayweather. And some would say, well, maybe that question already got answered in the first fight because, look, he did have trouble early in the fight, but here he is, the older fight, controlling better the tempo in the second part of the fight. So that would demonstrate that, well, it isn't that he's lost skills or is degraded physically. It's just that Maidana did well in the early part of the fight. We'll see.
Now moving on to the second topic that we're going to touch on, Manny Pacquiao. A lot of opponents rumored to face him in Macau coming in November. I know Algieri's being popped out there, other people as well. Seeing Manny right now, what kind of fight would you like to see him in there with?
Well, I think probably the leading candidate now might be Chris Algieri, who beat Ruslan Provodnikov in a very exciting and thrilling match. And Chris Algieri showed a couple of things in that match. He showed toughness because he was knocked down twice in the first round, terrible swelling around his right eye that stopped him from seeing. His vision was very bad for the second part of the fight, and yet he was able to box very effectively and end up winning a very close decision that, arguably could have gone either way. But Chris Algieri demonstrated in that fight that he's a very special fighter. Now, if in fact Algieri would be the opponent for Pacquiao, intriguing because his boxing skills are such, and physically where he's at, I think it could be an interesting matchup for Manny Pacquiao. Now, they may feel like they want to go in that direction because Algieri is not a huge puncher, but he's a very skilled fighter, that's for sure. And, part of the problem is Tim Bradley, you're not going to go in that direction again. I think there is probably Juan Manuel Marquez, Manny Pacquiao fatigue among boxing fans. They've had 4 very interesting and very exciting fights. Does anyone want to see another one? That's the question.
With me, I like Algieri, and what he showed me in the Provodnikov fight, I love his style. I love tall fighters who use the jab, who move around, and use the ring. I love that about him, but Chris Algieri, the name, it worries me how well that pay-per-view would do.
Well, from a business, purely commerce standpoint, which we always are forced to think about, I guess, in boxing, would that resonate enough for them? And that's a business decision. I guess, and from the pure boxing standpoint, I agree with you. It's an interesting, and I think Chris Algieri is good. Now I saw Bob Arum make a comment that the storyline is interesting, and of course Chris Algieri a very, very interesting and marketable guy. You know, he's got a master's degree. He's a fascinating talker. He's a really interesting guy. And if you can get that story out there, plus show those Provodnikov clips enough, you know, they might be able to make that into something that's, you know, commanding. And of course, Manny Pacquiao drives all these pay-per-views, but the way the pay-per-view business is now, does it drive it enough? You know, my inclination is to think, okay, just what's the best fight for boxing fans? And this certainly could be one of them because it's a new face on the horizon. You know, we don't get a recycled fight, which sometimes we love sequels in boxing as much as they love them in the movies, but sometimes something new is better.
I think Algieri is going to be around for a while. And when I saw him with Provodnikov, I just kind of got that inkling that he has an it factor.
Yes.
And if he gets big wins, he's going to stay around.
I couldn't agree with you more, Marcos. I know it's only one fight, and you know, like you, I've seen some of his fights before, but we didn't know how good he might be because he hadn't stepped up against that kind of opposition. I agree with you. You know, it's hard to rush to judgment on a fighter from one fight, but he faced so many problems. He's in there against one of the hardest hitters, you know, in that division or any division. He gets hurt early, he faces adversity, keeps his head about him, and really does a great job. You have to say to yourself, what would he have done had he not had that swollen eye? You know, it's one thing to get knocked down twice, but as it turns out, the eye got swollen so badly. How much would he have controlled that fight if not for that? So I agree with you. I think he's a guy that could be around for a while, and it would be fascinating to see him against Pacquiao.
That was a nasty little mouse that he had, right?
Wow, rough. And to have it in the first round and have to deal with that, the whole
like a
fight.
nightmare scenario.
You couldn't start worse in your first major fight, and that's why you have to give him all the props in the world for having the poise and the wherewithal to get past that.
Now moving on to our last topic, the heavyweights currently in the boxing landscape. Tyson Fury generating some talk on Twitter, Romain Stavern, Deontay Wilder, all in the mix. I know Fury is going to rematch Chisora. Talk to me about the heavyweight picture right now and all these figures kind of moving in a place like chess.
Yeah, for once, you know, the Klitschkos have dominated the heavyweight division. Vladimir is still there, and he's going to be defending his title. And in fact, the Tyson Fury-Derek Chisora fight, which is going to be held here on July 26th, is a eliminator. That winner is supposed to fight Vladimir Klitschko. And of course, it's a rematch, that fight, between a previous match, which I broadcast on Channel 5 in the UK, in which Tyson Fury beat Derek Chisora. Now, Chisora's kind of, since then, had some ups and downs, but has had enough wins, I guess, to merit an eliminator, even though he lost to David Haye. And previously lost his chance at a world title. But some people are saying, well, if Chisora's in better shape, he's going to beat Tyson Fury. Most people denigrate Tyson Fury, especially on this side of on the American side of the Atlantic, though many British fans are seeing this as well. I don't denigrate Tyson Fury. In this configuration of the heavyweight division, with the landscape as it is, Tyson Fury's a very good heavyweight. Would he have been a good heavyweight in Ali, Norton, Foreman, Frazier period? Would he have been a titleist? Probably not. But he's a good fighter who fights a very fan-friendly style. He's got a very good jab. He does go down. He occasionally gets hurt, but he always gets up. He's a very interesting fighter. Now, the winner, as we said, will fight Klitschko. But over on the other side of the aisle, we have, and it's been a part of the Fury thing because Tyson Fury, very active on Twitter, and Deontay Wilder also. And between the two of them, they've been yelling at each other for reasons I don't exactly know. Also, Wilder and Stavern have been going at it. Stavern likely to face Wilder. That's a big part of the puzzle as well.
For me, I know a lot of attention is on Tyson Fury, on Deontay Wilder, the knockouts, the talk from Fury, but I feel out of those guys, Stavern is the more solid heavyweight, and I think like he kind of gets overshadowed because, you know, he's a really quiet guy, really humble, doesn't, you know, make a lot of noise, but I really feel that he's underrated.
I couldn't agree, and if you want to see the true personality of Stavern, watch the feature we have on him here on the boxing channel that I did some months ago with him before he fought for the title against Chris Arreola. Very thoughtful, interesting guy, a Haitian immigrant that came to Canada. Now he's in the United States. And you're right, even though he's in his mid-30s and he got a late chance at the title, very solid fighter. And when you look at him against Wilder, you know, there are some questions that have been answered for Stiverne, they haven't been answered for Wilder. Wilder hasn't really fought good competition. He hasn't gone many rounds. So, you know, Stiverne has done that, and we'll see what happens. But I agree with you. He kind of gets overshadowed a little bit, but at least the heavyweight division has a pulse now. That's good.
It's a good pulse as well. And really, to me, I like hearing the talk from Tyson Fury. Like, I want to be entertained, you know, especially in a division that doesn't have a lot of key big name fighters. You know, this is entertainment, you know, it's sports, but sports entertainment, where that phrase gets coined. And to me, it pumps me up. It makes me feel even more invested in a fight. So with Fury during that, for me, I agree with it. I think he should keep doing it, and I think people should take a page out of his book and continue to do it. It makes it interesting.
He says some wild stuff. You know, when you're around him, the early fights, when he's not quote unquote on stage, he's a very charming, amiable guy. But I think he has made the determination that you pointed out, and that maybe is the right one, that while that's very engaging, maybe it doesn't get him as much attention. So he's kind of taken on this, and of course Jekyll and Hyde, a British production in the beginning. He's a little bit of the Jekyll and Hyde guy.
He's like boxing's Chael Sonnen.
Yes, that's right. That's a very good point. Famous MMA fighter who has wild, varying emotions that are a part of his game. So yeah, I agree.
Al, as always, it's great talking with you about the hot topics. Closing shop here with Al Bernstein, Marcos Villegas for the Boxing Channel.